Love, written in tears. A story of fate and separation. The first time Aiden saw Lily, the world seemed to pause for just a moment. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the kind where the golden leaves swirled through the air like fragments of forgotten stories. She stood beneath the old oak tree on the university campus, a book tucked under her arm, completely lost in thought. Her long, dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, her hazel eyes filled with a quiet curiosity that made Aiden forget how to breathe. They were just students back then, young, ambitious, and utterly unprepared for the kind of love that would change their lives forever. From that moment, they became inseparable. Their love wasn't the kind that burned bright and disappeared. It was slow, steady, and deep, like the roots of the tree under which they first met. Aiden, with his dreams of becoming a writer, would fill pages upon pages with poetry about her, while Lily, the aspiring architect, would sketch places she imagined them living together someday. Theirs was a love of small moments, of whispered secrets in the university library, of stolen glances in crowded lecture halls, of late-night phone calls where neither wanted to hang up first. They made promises beneath the stars, swearing that no matter what happened, they would always find their way back to each other. But life, as it so often does, had other plans. The cruelty of time. The years passed, and soon the pressures of adulthood began creeping in. Lily's career took her far away, and Aiden, struggling to get his first novel published, found himself buried in deadlines and rejections. The late-night conversations turned into early morning silences. The distance grew, not just physically, but in the spaces between their hearts. They fought, not because they stopped loving each other, but because they loved each other too much. Too much to admit that maybe love alone wasn't enough to bridge the ever-widening gap between them. Then came the final blow. One evening, Lily called. Her voice trembled. "Aiden, my parents, they've arranged a marriage for me." Aiden's world shattered. He wanted to tell her to run, to fight for their love, to defy the expectations forced upon her. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Lily's family was traditional, and their hold over her life was unbreakable. She had spent her entire life trying to please them, and now they were asking for the one thing she couldn't refuse. It wasn't a choice, it was a sentence. A love that could not be. Aiden met her one last time, on the night before her wedding. The rain poured relentlessly, as if the heavens themselves were grieving for them. Lily stood before him, drenched, her eyes begging for forgiveness. "I never wanted this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." Aiden cupped her face, memorizing every detail of her trembling lips, her tear-streaked cheeks, the way her body shook in the cold. "I know," he said softly. "But some love stories don't get happy endings." She sobbed into his chest, and for a brief moment, they were just Aiden and Lily again, two souls madly in love, trying to hold on to something already slipping through their fingers. The next morning, Lily became someone else's wife. Aiden left the city, carrying nothing but memories and heartbreak, knowing that some wounds never truly heal. A story without an ending. Years later, Aiden's first novel was published. It was a love story, a tragic one. A story of two people who loved fiercely, but whom fate had torn apart. Readers wept, critics called it hauntingly beautiful, but no one knew the truth. No one knew that Lily's name was written between every line. And somewhere, in another city, in a house she never truly called home, Lily read every word, clutching the book to her chest, as silent tears traced the path of a love she had lost. Because some love stories never truly end. They simply live on in the hearts of those who remember. Part 2. The Unfinished Symphony of Love. Aiden had tried to move on. He had convinced himself that time would dull the pain, that eventually he would forget the way Lily's laughter sounded in the autumn breeze. But some wounds never heal. They merely settle into the depths of the heart, a quiet ache that lingers in the background of every moment. One evening, as Aiden was preparing for a book signing in New York City, he received an unexpected message. It was from Eleanor, Lily's childhood friend. The subject line read, "She's back." His hands trembled as he opened the email. The words were simple, yet they set his world spinning. "Lily is back in town. She asked about you." Aiden's heart pounded. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, played out different scenarios in his head. Would she still be the same Lily he had loved? Would she regret leaving? Would she even recognize him after all these years? But there was something he feared more than anything. What if she had moved on, but he hadn't? A reunion, written in the stars. Aiden found himself standing outside the cafe where they had once shared endless conversations. It was there that he saw her again, after all these years. Lily. She was sitting by the window, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, staring at nothing in particular. Her hair was shorter now, framing her delicate face, and there was a sadness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Taking a deep breath, Aiden stepped inside. She looked up, and the moment their eyes met, the world seemed to stop, just like the first time they had met. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Then, Lily broke the silence. "I read your book," she said softly. "Every word." Aiden swallowed hard. "Did you find what you were looking for?" A sad smile played on her lips. "I found myself in the pages." The weight of 1,000 unspoken words hung between them. Aiden could see it in her eyes. The regret, the longing, the love that had never truly faded. But before he could speak, Lily reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She placed it on the table between them, her fingers trembling. "I never had the courage to send this," she admitted, "but I wrote it the night before my wedding." Aiden's breath hitched as he reached for the envelope. His fingers brushed against hers for the briefest second. And in that moment, it was as if time had rewound, bringing them back to the days when love was simple and dreams were endless. He unfolded the letter, his eyes scanning the words that would change everything. And just as he finished reading, Lily whispered, "I left him." Aiden looked up, his pulse racing. Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I should have chosen you." The world spun, the past colliding with the present. But for the first time in years, Aiden felt something he hadn't dared to hope for. A second chance. Love's reckoning. Aiden sat frozen, Lily's words echoing in his mind. "I left him." It felt surreal, like a dream he had played out 1,000 times in his head but never expected to hear in reality. His heart pounded, warring between overwhelming relief and the deep scars of the past. Lily looked away, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "I stayed for as long as I could," she whispered. "I tried to make it work, but it was never real. Not the way it was with us." Aiden let out a shaky breath, his hands tightening around the letter she had given him. Why now? His voice was barely above a whisper. Why tell me this after all these years? Lily's eyes met his, shimmering with unshed tears. Because I never stopped loving you, and I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Silence hung between them, heavy with the weight of everything left unsaid. The struggle between the past and the future. The following days were a blur of emotions. Aiden and Lily began meeting in secret, old habits creeping back in like vines reclaiming an abandoned home. They talked for hours, reliving their best memories and confronting the pain of their separation. But love, no matter how deep, doesn't erase wounds overnight. Aiden struggled with the ghosts of their past. Could he trust her after all these years? Could he believe that she wouldn't leave again? One evening, as they walked along the river, Lily stopped abruptly. I know you're afraid, she said softly, taking his hand. But I'm not that girl anymore. I'm not afraid to fight for us this time. Aiden searched her eyes, looking for doubt, hesitation, anything that would tell him this was temporary. But all he saw was certainty. And he knew then. He had never stopped loving her either. The choice that changes everything. Just as they were beginning to believe in their second chance, reality came knocking. One afternoon, Lily received a call from her ex-husband, Daniel. His voice was calm, but his words carried a quiet warning. I know you've been seeing him, he said. You don't owe me anything, but just remember, divorce doesn't erase everything. There are consequences. Fear gripped her chest. Daniel was a powerful man, and while their marriage had been civil, she knew he wouldn't let go without a fight. She met Aiden that evening, her hands trembling as she explained. He won't hurt me, but he has influence. If he wanted, he could destroy your career, Aiden. Aiden's jaw clenched. I don't care about my career. I care about you. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. But I care about you too. And I won't let you lose everything because of me. Aiden cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. We've lost enough time, Lily. I won't let fear steal any more of it. But Lily wasn't sure they had a choice, a love worth fighting for. Days passed and tension thickened. Aiden's editor called, warning him that certain media outlets had gotten wind of his connection to Lily and Daniel's high-profile divorce. Whispers of scandal followed him everywhere. But Aiden refused to back down. Then one night, Lily showed up at his door, visibly shaken. I'm done running, she declared. If you'll have me, Aiden, I'll fight for us, no matter what comes. His heart swelled with love and admiration. Then let's fight together. With that, they decided to leave the city, to start fresh, away from the eyes that had watched them for so long. The final reckoning. As they packed their bags, Aiden received an unexpected call. Daniel, I underestimated you, Daniel said, his voice eerily calm. But if you think running away will solve everything, you're wrong. Aiden's grip tightened on the phone. We're not running, Daniel. We're just choosing happiness. A long pause, then a quiet chuckle. Then I hope you make it worth it. With that, Daniel hung up, leaving Aiden with a lingering unease. But when he turned to see Lily, smiling despite everything, he knew. It didn't matter. Because some loves were worth fighting for. And this time, they wouldn't let go. A love that refused to break. Aiden had spent years writing stories, creating worlds where love found a way despite the odds. But this This was the hardest story he had ever lived. He and Lily had chosen each other, but the world wasn't ready to let them be. As they drove away from the city that had both brought them together and torn them apart, Aiden reached over, taking Lily's hand in his. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice quiet yet steady. She nodded, intertwining her fingers with his. "I've never been more sure of anything." Their new home was a small coastal town, far removed from the whispers and shadows of their past. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, its waves a promise of new beginnings. They rented a modest house by the shore, where the scent of salt filled the air, and the sunsets painted the sky in hues of gold and violet. For the first time in years, they breathed freely, but the ghosts of their past were never too far behind. When the past comes knocking, a few months passed in relative peace, and Aiden found inspiration again. His writing flourished, and Lily had started taking on private design projects. They had built a life together, a fragile, delicate thing, but theirs nonetheless. Then one evening, as they walked along the shore, Lily's phone rang. "Daniel." Her fingers trembled as she stared at the screen. Aiden stopped beside her, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to answer." Lily hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, she picked up. "Hello?" "Lily." His voice was smooth, controlled. "I thought you might have forgotten me." "I haven't," she admitted, "but I moved on." A pause. Then a chuckle. "Did you really think I'd let you go so easily?" Aiden's fist clenched as he watched the color drain from Lily's face. He reached for her hand, grounding her as Daniel's words sent a chill through the warm evening air. A battle for freedom. Daniel was not a man accustomed to losing, and for him, losing Lily was not just a personal failure, it was a matter of power. Within days of the phone call, Lily began receiving cryptic emails, news articles about Aiden's past being leaked, rumors of his career being sabotaged. Aiden knew what was happening. Daniel was trying to force Lily back into his world by making her feel guilty, by making her believe she had no choice. But she did have a choice. And this time, she chose Aiden. "Let him play his games," she whispered one night as they lay tangled in each other's arms. "I won't go back." Aiden held her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "We'll fight. Together." A letter that changed everything. Weeks later, a package arrived at their doorstep. No name, no return address, just an envelope resting on top of an old leather-bound book. Lily's hands trembled as she picked it up, recognizing Daniel's handwriting before she even opened it. "Lily, you once told me love should never feel like a prison. I didn't understand it then. Maybe I still don't. But I do know that no matter how much I tried to keep you, I never really had you. And I can't spend my life chasing a love that was never mine to begin with. I won't stand in your way anymore. But don't let me hear that you wasted this chance. If you've truly found your happiness, hold on to it. Because not all of us get a second chance. Daniel." Lily exhaled slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. Aiden took the letter from her, reading it in silence before meeting her gaze. "Do you believe him?" She hesitated, then nodded. I think he's letting me go." Aiden pulled her into his arms. For the first time in years, they weren't running, they weren't hiding. They were free. A love that endured. Years passed, and their love only deepened. Aiden's books became bestsellers, but the only critic that ever mattered to him was the woman who had always been his greatest muse. Lily designed homes filled with warmth and love, homes built for people to make memories, just as she had rebuilt her own life with Aiden. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Aiden sat beside Lily on their porch, his fingers intertwined with hers. "If you could go back and change anything," he asked, "would you?" She turned to him, a soft smile gracing her lips. "No," she whispered, "because everything led me back to you." Aiden kissed her then, slow and deep, the way he had always meant to. Because some love stories don't need perfect beginnings. They just need a chance to find their way home.